Uh, Good afternoon, one and all. Uh, Good afternoon and happy Ganesh Chaturthi to one and all. Uh, I welcome you all to this third lecture in the series of guest lectures in the data analytics series organized by Bombay College of Pharmacy. We have with us our very own Mr. Mahesh Kalshekar uh, as a speaker today. We have Mr. Ashish Baptiwale, our own alumni. Uh, if I may request Mr. Ashish sir to kindly introduce our speaker for today's lecture. Ashish sir, over to you.
Thank you, Sagar. And first and foremost, thank you, Mahesh, uh, for accepting this invitation and guiding the students. I know this is a difficult day for most of the students. Few of my friends called me up and said that they want to attend. So they have asked me to keep your lecture another time again. Friends, Mahesh Kalsekar, our own college alumni, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce him. I was doing my M.Pharm when he was doing his B.Pharm. He's a 92 passed B.Pharm and has completed his master's in management studies from Sydenham College. He has a good exposure with multinationals, which gave him an edge in understanding the research and how to play with data. Albeit he has not got a formal education, but with his experience, he has literally mastered data analytics and it's used in enhancing the business. Let's see how from his experience. He has almost more than 25 years of experience in the healthcare sector, spanning across either strategic consulting, big data analytics, or managing business operations. And the latest, what he is working, he has earlier worked with GSK, Takeda, IMS Health, now, but currently, he's working with Pharmarec. Pharmarec is a company which helps all the chemists to order their products easily through the stockist, and all the data is gathered. Now, this company churns out that data, and Mahesh is helping them a lot as a CCO, Chief Commercial Officer. And he has built a product to service the pharma industry. So the pharmaceutical company can literally go through the data and he gives them insighting so that they can take database decisions and also improve their brand market shares. And I was surprised. I didn't know that such is a big scope. That within 1 year, he has created a value of more than 5 crore for his own company. So you know what his worth is. And the second thing which shocked me that he is saying that albeit something is slowed down because of this COVID, but his objective was 25 crore in the second year. I wish him all the best, and you all can see how data can literally make a lot of money for all of us and also the companies. I will not take much time, and I'll request Mahesh to teach us because he is the person who has not done data analytics but is a master in data analytics as far as marketing, market research, and logistics is concerned. Let's hear to him. Over to Mahesh. Thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you so much, Ash. Thanks for that warm welcome and my introduction. I hope everybody can hear me. I think everybody is on mute, but whoever is not, Ashish, Sagar, you can just confirm to me whether I'm audible to everyone or not.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll start off my video right now and I'll switch to my presentation and I will then continue with my communication and the Yeah, Sagar, Ashish, I'm just switching off my video and I'll just continue with my audio and the presentation right now.
Sure.
Sure, sir. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Ashish, Sagar, thank you so much. Thanks to BCP for giving this opportunity to me to talk to all of you. First of all, I apologize. I start with an apology uh, to you because we were actually conducting this program on Ganesh Chaturthi day, and you are all attending that. I'm very happy to see the number of students attending this program. But apologize from my side. We'll try to see whether we can also arrange another session, as Ashish has already said, for the people who could not attend it. But right now, let's focus on what we have to say today and what we have to discuss today. I have got 1 hour, for the discussion. I have got only 16 to 17 slides right now. My sincere request is for to all of you is to go through the conversation I will take pauses in between as well. I don't want to take a pause only at the end of the presentation. I will take a pause after 15-20 minutes, and I will try to understand whether you have any specific questions in your mind. If you don't have them, we will continue with them, and then I'll take all the remaining questions at the end of the session. As Ashish has already introduced me, I have been working with the pharmaceutical sector for last 25 years. I have worked with companies like IMS or IQVIA for close to 15 years, heading their entire consulting organization, strategic consulting organization, which is all about big data analytics for 6 or 7 years, and then heading the entire big data analytics data business for 9 years. So the kind of experience that I have with IMS, and then I've worked with pharmaceutical companies for 9 years now. This has actually given me enough exposure and experience in terms of handling big data and providing solutions and helping companies to take decisions in their space. In the today's session, I'm trying to cover these three specific points. Number one is application of data analytics across areas within pharma commercial space. It is like an overview for all of you. So I will tell you some 6 areas where data analytics are used extensively in the commercial segment of the pharma industry. That's number one. The second one is there are 5 critical success factors for any data analytics project to be successful. So I will just touch upon each one of them. And third one is I have got 5 case studies or 5 examples of the actual work done in this section. I will try to do as many as them today. If time permits, all 5 of them. If not, then maybe 2 or 3. That's the agenda, and I'll go through each one of them. First section has got 3 slides, second section 1 slide, and then I've got around 15 slides or 14 slides on the third section with examples. This is a typical growth plan or growth cycle that every pharmaceutical or any company follows in any country. They all start off with launch of a product first, and there is a lot that is done before a product is launched by the company. We call it as that is a new launch strategy and new launch plan. Once the product is launched, we need to build that brand. So this is basically the brand building phase. Once the brand is built, the company starts looking
sir, excuse me.
Yeah.
You have shared your presentation?
The presentation is not visible.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. I have shared my presentation. I can see that.
Can you share it again?
I'll do that. Can you see it now?
Yes, yes. Now it is coming. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, sorry. Apologies for that. These are the 3 topics that I was talking about. Okay, application, critical success factors, and focus on 5 specific areas. Can you see this slide?
Yes.
Perfect. So
Yes.
This is the growth cycle that every company goes through. Launch of a product, build the brand, grow the brand through geographical expansion. And when I say geographical expansion, it could be starting the launch of the product with few states, expanding to more states, or it could be starting with metro cities, going to lower town classes, and then finally going to villages. So that's how the brand gets expanded. The third wave of expansion is starting off with 1 or 2 doctor specialties, then moving to maybe multiple doctor specialties. So there are 2, 3, 4 different ways of expansion that happens for a brand. Geographical expansion is one of them. Customer level expansion is another. As I've said, geographical itself can have either the state level expansion or town class level expansion. So that is what companies look at. After some time, obviously, there is a natural decline that every brand and every company faces. Now, to avoid that natural decline for the product, companies then start looking at portfolio expansion and then productivity increase strategies. So these are different kind of strategies that are required or that are chalked out by various companies. The whole objective of every organization is to ensure that the brand keeps growing and there is no decline that the companies observe right now. Fortunately, pharmaceuticals is one industry where brands don't go for natural decline very fast. Okay, we are very lucky to be in that particular space. Unlike in say some of the technology spaces, mobile spaces, cars and all, as you must have seen, every company, every model, every product actually dies off quite quickly within 2, 3, 5 years. Whereas if you look at the pharmaceutical products, they can have a lifetime of as many as even 50 to 100 years. One molecule, paracetamol, is there in the country, in the world for so many years, and it is likely to be there in the world for many years. However, it is not about the molecule, but how do you actually build your brand in that molecule is something that companies keep thinking about. That's where this natural decline at the brand level is experienced by them, and they try to look at how to expand that particular brand as well. Aligned with this natural progression, companies actually use data analytics across 6 specific areas. Look at these areas. All these areas are in a sequence. Okay, it starts from launch of a product. So whenever a company decides to launch a product, they normally do projects like market access, entry strategies, pricing, and finally forecasting. Forecasting is basically understanding is the market size that is available for that particular product, and what is the size or what is the market that the product will capture. So for example, if the product is entering a market which is currently 100 crores, what will happen to that market 5 years and 10 years down the line? Will it become 200 crores, 500 crores, or 5,000 crores? And what will happen to my brand? Now, if I want a huge number of or a very good revenue for, can I really play around with pricing over there? Then what should be my entry strategy? How many states that I should enter in? How many field force? What is the field force that I should have in the country? Should I start off with 5 states and I should have like 200 people promoting that product? Or should I go across the country and have 5,000 people promoting my brand? All these are decided at the time of launch, or even we call it at the pre-launch stage. So this is the exercise that is done at pre-launch stage, and lot of data analytics are done using here. I have taken one example of forecasting over here in terms of data analytics just to explain that to you. Once you do the exercise, once your entire strategy is ready, once your plan is ready, then you go for execution. While you go for execution, you actually look at the geographical strategy, you recruit field forces, or you decide to use your existing field forces. You look at optimizing your field force, or you look at expanding your field force. That is where again the data analytics comes into picture. Once you have taken the decision on brand and people, then you go to the customer. So how do you really segment your customer? Now, when I talk about segmenting and targeting the customer, let me focus on doctor as one customer, which is the primary customer of the pharma industry. So how do we really segment the doctors? Should I segment the doctor based upon their qualification? Should I segment the doctor based upon the number of years of practice that the doctor has? Should I segment the doctor based upon gender of the doctor, male doctor versus female doctor? How do I really segment the doctor? Or should I just look at doctors in metro cities versus other cities? What is the purpose of this segmentation? So that is, I have taken one full example of explaining this entire segmentation part to you in today's session. Then the fourth one is, once I have got the product, I have got the people, I have identified my doctors, I actually go to the doctors and start meeting them and actually start promoting my products to them. So as a part of that, obviously, I need to have very good in-clinic effectiveness. Now, how do I know that I'm having very good in-clinic effectiveness? That is dependent upon the number of calls that a medical representative make to the doctor and the kind of return that I get from that doctor. The return from the doctor is in terms of number of prescriptions that I get from the doctor. So all that is covered under a project called as commercial excellence, and SFE, in-clinic effectiveness, call planning, incentive structuring. All this is a part of commercial excellence for a company. And again, data analytics plays a very important role in managing the entire commercial excellence piece. So now again, we have come to this level. Commercial excellence is done. I am now tracking it. I now need to track the performance at an individual MR level, an individual ABM level, an individual territory level. So then from here, I basically move to actual tracking and improvement project of ours. Now, whatever I'm talking about, I'm sure all of you can easily understand that each of these projects and each of these activities that are handled by the pharma companies actually require a lot of data. The performance tracking and improvement is entirely data driven. It all depends upon the efforts taken by the company. We need to quantify those efforts, and the results obtained by the company. Again, we need to quantify the results, which are actually in terms of number of prescriptions and the sales that happens at the counter. So efforts versus outcomes becomes your performance tracking and improvement tool. And based upon all these analysis, once you realize that you are doing good, you're doing bad, you do a lot of analysis over there, and you realize that this is the time for you to actually do some kind of an expansion in your brand itself. So for example, you have launched, say, an antibiotic molecule, and then you need to launch a combination of that, or you have launched a painkiller, or you have launched a gastrointestinal product, and now the plain product is actually declining. That's why you need to add a combination of that particular molecule with another molecule. So you then look at portfolio optimization or expansion strategy. As a part of these strategies, again, there is a lot of data analysis that is done, and you arrive at a decision that you need to launch 2 more products in the market as a part of this analysis. So what happens? Again, you go back to the same thing, because you have decided to launch a product. You again go to the market access, pricing, forecasting, and the cycle continues. So this is the cycle that every company keeps following every day, every month, every week, every year. So there is no rest for any of the team members which are working in any of the departments over there. So marketing team is responsible for everything. There are strategy teams, there are data analytics team, there are market research teams, there are consulting teams who work on these projects. So there are multiple teams which work on each of these projects. And when I talk about data analytics, obviously all these decisions are based upon multiple sources of data which are available with the industry. Now, I just wanted to highlight some of the databases to you, and the purpose of this is twofold. One, to tell you the importance of data. The second, to also tell you how complicated it is. You look at the kind of databases which are available to you. You have macroeconomic indicators. What are macroeconomic indicators? How is this country performing? What is the population of the state? What is the population of city? What is the infrastructure development in each of the cities? Then you have companies like my company, PharmaRack, also companies like IMS, which provide sales trends of the product, the competitors, various molecules, therapy areas, the prescription trends, the census data of doctors, retailers, the doctor preference data of various molecules or diseases, the kind of diseases or ailment treated by various doctor specialties. All these databases are available to the pharma companies as external databases. The second one is there are huge amount of internal databases which are available with the companies. What are those internal databases? As we just saw in this SFE and performance tracking, we have sales data trends by brands and geography, which is the internal sales data. Similarly, you have call data. That is the number of calls made by MRs, their campaigns, CMEs, samples given to the doctors, etc., etc. And then you also have financial data, which is COGS, gross margins, net profitability, marketing expenses, and all. To top it up, these are all the secondary databases which are always available. To top it up, you also do primary market research. This primary market research is to primarily find out these are all usage and attitude studies. That is UAU study, that is awareness, usage, and attitude studies. There are studies which are done among retailers. There are studies which are done among doctors, distributors, consumers to find out price preferences, product preferences, molecule preferences, etc., etc., etc. So there is abundance of data available. There is abundance of companies which are creating this data through primary market research or secondary market research. And there are multiple companies which are also involved in analyzing this data and creating insights out of that data. So guys, this is a huge market that we're talking about. I just wanted to give you an idea that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are working in data analytics space only in healthcare right now. Some of them are in pharma companies using the data and analyzing the data. Some of them are working with companies like IMS and some backend companies which are creating this data, extrapolating that data. And there are some pure data analytics companies which are helping pharma companies in analyzing any and every database which is available in the market. Why? Because there are not many people in the pharma sector or in the healthcare sector who can actually make sense out of this data or convert this data from data to insights, insights to knowledge, and knowledge to application, as we normally say. There are very few people who are available in the industry who have got that kind of expertise in the country. So obviously, there are companies which are building different kind of expertise right now, and that's exactly what I wanted to share with you. So obviously, as I mentioned, the purpose of this data analytics is to provide support in the decision making, execution, as well as tracking. And all the three elements are the one that I have already touched upon. What is the purpose again? If I have to just break it down into small individual line items, actually moving away from gut-based decisions to fact-based decisions. That's the most important thing. If you go to pharma industry, there are a lot of people, and Ashish and Sagar have interacted with a lot of them. Ashish has got extensive experience in pharma industry. 60 to 70% of the product managers, marketing managers, or the heads of the departments have actually moved from sales background to the top background. So they have actually had a great experience of going to the doctors, meeting doctors, and generating prescriptions. But they don't necessarily have data analytics experience. So they generally tend to take decisions which are based upon their own experience. That experience is also data. Please remember that, because that's a data of 25 years, which is getting churned out in their head. But again, if that is clubbed with bias that the people have, then the data becomes only gut-based and not fact-based. And that's why the second objective is removing bias from the system, help in execution of decision-making, and then track the performance. Data analytics helps in converting data into insights, as I've already mentioned to you. There are 5 critical success factors, and I want everyone to remember these 5 points. Okay. Number 1, I'll just go back to my earlier slide, and you can see this mammoth amount of data that is available in the country right now. My question to you is every piece of information, is every piece of data really required for every decision that you want to take? The answer is obviously no. And that's where the relevance of every data point is very, very important for you to understand. Trust me, not many people really understand the relevance of the data. And that is exactly where the data science and data science projects and programs actually teach you. The second one is understand the authenticity or accuracy of the data. Every data that you get to see is not necessarily 100% accurate. The definition of accuracy is only one. It is accurate or it is not accurate. Please remember that. And there are a lot of databases which are available in the country which are not accurate. So they call it as, partially accurate, partially authenticated, they're checked. But you need to understand, I'm not saying that you should always use 100% accurate data. You should know what is the accuracy of the data that you are using. That is the most important thing. The third one is evaluate confidentiality and compliance. Any data that you extract from any source is owned by that source. So before you extract, use, and share that data, you need to understand whether you have that right to share that data or not. The fourth one is consistency of the data. That means you need to know whether the data, when you club 2 or 3 different databases, are you really able to club them? Are they using the same nomenclature? For example, you are extracting data from one format which says paracetamol. Another format is erroneously written paracetamol ke jagah paracetamol. You will not be able to club that data. Then your analysis will go wrong. So you need to understand consistency of databases that you are extracting and clubbing together. And finally, you have to get the availability of the data. Whatever data that you are getting right now and whatever decisions you are making today, are you likely to get that data available tomorrow also? Day after tomorrow also, after 5 years also? If yes, then you can use that data consistently. Otherwise, it can be just a one-time project and you have to stop it. So these are the 5 very, very important levers, as we say, or critical success factors for data analytics. Okay, I will just take a 2-minute pause here. If there is any question from Sagar, Ashish, or anybody, I'll spend 2 minutes over here.
So can I raise a question on behalf of audience?
Please.
So you just mentioned there is primary market survey and secondary market survey. So what is that and how is it done?
Okay, so primary market research is actually going to a specific audience or a respondent, executing a questionnaire, asking questions to the person, collecting the data, coming back and analyzing the data. That is called as primary market research. Primary, that means this person is primary contact of yours. Okay. Secondary data is something that you have not gone and collected from the market. That data comes to you. So entire IMS data, most of the people use analysis of market, that IMS data, PharmaRack data, CMARC data, which is a prescription trend data. These databases are considered to be secondary databases. Similarly, government census data, government infrastructure data, doctor census data, these are all secondary source data where you are personally not going and collecting any data.
Thank you, sir.
So shall I move? Okay, Sagar, I am moving ahead right now to the second part of the presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now, after talking about the data analytics part of it and the application of the data in the sales and marketing functions or the commercial function, I have just taken 5 examples. There are 25, 30, 50 or hundreds of such examples which are available with me, and I can talk about any one of them, but I have just picked up 5 very, very critical ones or important ones for the pharma industry. Number 1 is, how do we prioritize a doctor specialty for your brand? Now it's a very, very simple question. Okay, if I am launching a molecule, which doctor specialty should I go to? And now I will really talk about the importance of data analytics over here. So if I ask this question to any pharmacist, if I ask this question to any product manager from the pharma industry, or anybody who does not know data analytics, then they will say, any doctor who gives me maximum prescription share, he is the most important doctor for me. Okay. Obviously, my data from various sources says that all general practitioners put together give me 30% of the prescription, consulting physicians give me 25%, gynecologist 20%, gastroenterologist 15%, and general surgeon 10%. So obviously, my entire focus will be on GPs and consulting physicians, because almost 55% of the market is with only 2 doctor specialties. It's so simple, right? But obviously, it is not simple. Now, look at additional piece of information. Now, if I tell you that there are 3 lakh general practitioners who are prescribing this particular molecule, as against only 4,000 gastroenterologists prescribing this particular molecule, and that's why every gastroenterologist is currently writing 120 prescriptions per month, whereas every general practitioner is writing only 3 prescriptions per month. Now, what happens? Your decision changes. Now, suddenly you start looking at gynecologist, gastroenterologist, and general surgeons being more important doctor specialties. Correct? Now, I give you another piece of information. Now I say that, okay, this is fine. This is individual doctor. But let me tell you that if I approach a doctor, any doctor, how many doctors are currently prescribing that product? So if I look at the universe of doctors, okay, out of the entire universe of consulting physicians, 60% consulting physicians are prescribing that product. 95% of gastroenterologists are prescribing this product, and 70% of general surgeons are prescribing this product. So now suddenly these doctor specialties become important for me. But then I tell you that among the trends, what is the trend? That means as compared to last year, who doctor? Then I come back to again gastroenterology, saying that they are also growing the prescription. Wow, that means gastroenterology is the most important doctor specialty for me. And though gynecologist is also very good, there is a clear-cut decline in the prescription, which means that this gynecology as a segment is definitely moving from this molecule to some other molecule. Reason could be many, but this is what data indicates. So it is important for me to focus on doctor specialties which are growing very fast. This could be 10% growth here, 5% growth here, and 10% among consulting physicians. So now with this analysis, I now come to gastroenterology as my important doctor specialty. Does the analysis ends here? Not necessarily. I'll give you one more piece of information. What is the duration of treatment for which this particular product is prescribed, whatever that molecule is? And then I tell you that gastroenterologists and general surgeons prescribe this for 45 days average, whereas general practitioners prescribe this particular molecule only for 7 days. Why? Because they actually treat indications which require only 7 days of treatment. Whereas gastros, general surgeons are the doctor specialties which treat those specific indications which require 45 days or 60 days of treatment. So this is the average duration of treatment of one prescription. I hope everybody understands duration of treatment. If we go to a doctor, they actually write to us the name of the brand and the number of days that we take that brand for. Sometimes for 7 days, sometimes for 15 days, sometimes for 2 months, sometimes for 6 months. That is the duration of treatment. What is the importance of that? That actually decides what is the business that a pharma company can make based upon one prescription. So one prescription of a GP is equivalent to one strip of business, whereas one prescription of a gastro or a general surgeon is 6 or 7 strips. So that's the most important thing now. So again, my decision again starts tilting to gastro than general surgeon. Then I give one more piece of information. Does this company have any other product for gastroenterology? Nothing. That means this company is very strong in products for consulting physicians, gynecologists. They also have some products for general surgeons, but they have no other product that can be promoted to a gastroenterologist. What does that mean now? Gastroenterologist is the fantastic doctor specialty for that molecule. But is he the best doctor for me? Not necessarily, because I have to go to this gastroenterologist and I have to promote only one brand to him. He is not supporting me for any other brand. Now this is a big expense for me, because if I have to go to a doctor specialty for only one product, can my company really afford that? Now, I am not saying the answer is no. It all depends upon the company to company. So now, who is the most important doctor specialty for me? I can tell you that answer is unanswered. This question is unanswered right now with this data. And that is the job that a data scientist does. The data scientist will evaluate this data. Data scientists will give priority and weightages to each of the parameters based upon the current situation of the organization. If the organization is very big and willing to invest a lot of money, he will not give so much of importance to, the portfolio for gastroenterologists. But if the company is very small, the company doesn't have so much of money to be spent, then this becomes a very, very important, very critical factor for that company. So depending upon the company, the evolution of the company, the internal money that they have for investment on doctors, the company will decide which doctor to be prioritized. Right? So that's how one simple decision is taken by the company based upon data. And again, I'm telling you, not many companies really do this kind of a detailed analysis. They generally go by experience and they generally look at a prescription share or at max prescription per doctor per month. They go by these two areas and the rest of the things are considered as qualitative parameters, right? But there are another 5, 7, 10 qualitative parameters that you need to look at, and then you need to take a decision. So in a summary, I would say selection of doctor changes with every additional data point. Results may vary from company to company, and it's important to understand all these levers, all the factors that are important for the decision making. Make sense? I take that answer as yes. This is just one example of data analytics in identification of one very, very simple question, that is prioritization of the doctor. Let me take a very complicated example of segmentation of doctors. Now, I have actually tried to explain this in a very, very simple format. So you may see this as a very simple exercise. However, this is one of the most complex exercises that data scientists do in the pharma sector. What is segmentation? If I have all the doctors together, gynecologists, consulting physicians, general surgeons from metro cities, from class 1 towns, class 2 towns, from Maharashtra, Gujarat, all of them together as one segment, we are basically going to get into a mess if I have to create a strategy to reach out to these doctors, right? So not segmenting your market means applying one strategy to each one of them. You will have one visual aid, you will have one set of samples, you will have one theme, you will have one message. Everything will be same, but that's not in reality. So you need to have a different method. Now you decide to do everyone separate. That means every doctor, every individual doctor is treated separately. That's the best case scenario. However, that's very difficult and the most expensive scenario. Why? Then because you have to then have individual doctor level strategy. So you cannot do this because this is very difficult. It is a wrong strategy. You cannot do this because it is a very expensive and difficult strategy, time consuming strategy. So what you do now, you do segmentation of your customers. So what segmentation is basically grouping of customers using some specific criteria. So that's the definition that I've given to you. Segmentation is a process of identifying groups of customers with similar relevant characteristics or requiring similar approaches. If he's a doctor, what could be the similar relevant characteristics? This one segment could be all gynecologists together from all metro cities together. Since it's a gynecologist, maybe all male gynecologists in one segment and female gynecologists in another segment. Maybe all the doctors with more than 10 years of experience in one segment and less than 10 years of experience in another segment. So all these can be done as a part of segmentation. I'll give you a very simple example, and this is very easy for anybody to understand. See, in automobiles, if you look at BMW Group, they have done segmentation of their customers and have created products for each of the segments separately. Whether it is motorcycles, whether it is mini range, whether it is BMW premium cars or Rolls-Royce. So for every segment, they have got a different product, different USP, as well as different positioning. And obviously, the cost also is different for them. Similarly, if you look at Futures Group, they have got Big Bazaar, Food Bazaar, Central, E-Zone, Brand Factory. Each one of them has got a different positioning in the market. Third example, Taj Group, excellent example of creating value propositions for different segments of Europe. They have got luxury hotels, there's premium hotels like full service hotels, very, very expensive. On the other hand, they have Ginger Group. Now, Ginger Group is, they starts at something like 2,000 rupees per day, which is unheard of in Taj segment. But obviously, Taj delinks itself from Ginger brand itself. It just calls it a Tata Enterprise. So Taj remains as Taj Luxury Hotels. Ginger is a Tata Enterprise. But they have products for every segment. And that is exactly what companies also do. Create segment, normally using some volumetric analysis, which is our Pareto principle. As you know, 20% customers give you 80% of the business. The most important question for you is, how do you identify those 20%? Or in pharma industry, we don't call them 20%, but we call it 40%. How do you identify those 40% customers who give you 80 to 90% of the business? That's the most important thing that is done as a part of this segmentation. And for that, we use market value, market potential, performance, and lot of psychometric parameters also, adoption curves, loyalty, payer influence, practice type, practice size, etc., etc. These are all parameters that are used to create this entire segmentation model. Who does this segmentation modeling exercise? A data scientist, right? A data scientist does this modeling exercise. How does he do that? Number one, he understands the relevance of each of these parameters for the decision to be taken. He knows all the statistical techniques for using these variables. And then he also understands to some extent what is the decision that needs to be taken for data scientist creates that. And that is exactly where the role of people like you comes into picture. And finally, you have something like a complicated model of segmentation where the companies can take a decision in terms of which segment that the company should focus upon. So this is a actual example that I have picked up for a bipolar disorder. So for a bipolar disorder, we did a lot of behavioral analysis using patient data, behavioral data, demographic data. We did some primary market research data. And then based upon combination of all that, we created groups of doctors, which could be termed as early adopters versus late adopters. Within that, we broke them down into light users versus heavy users. And then we went back to the companies. And this is when I was a part of consulting organization. And we went back to the companies and we told them that these are the different segments. And then these are the areas and different segments that the companies can focus upon. And this is exactly what, so we told them that, these are the segment 4, 5 could be one of the best segments. Segment 4 could be one of the best segment for them. And they should focus on that. And once you identify the segment, you know where these doctors are, because you have already, club these doctors or segmented those doctors. So you know who that doctor is and how to treat that doctor. So that is the second example. The third example is more about using internal data. In interest of time, I will actually jump to the fourth example. This is one of my data scientist. There can't be anybody else who can even touch this. This is called as extrapolation. Okay, one of the areas that data scientists work extensively, and this is not only in pharmaceutical, it is across industries. What does extrapolation mean? Extrapolation means creating or analyzing behavior of the universe, for example, using various multipliers and factors. This is the process. What is extrapolation? The number one is create various segments, as you have already learned in the past. You create different segments of doctors, different segments of customers. Then you identify relevant factors that influence the behavior of that segment. And then you extrapolate that data. You remove the outliers. You apply these factors, again remove outliers. You know what outliers are? When you do a primary market research, you will see that majority of the doctors tend to give you similar responses. And there could be one or two doctors who will give you very weird, very different responses. For example, one doctor would say that, I have this product just started coming into the market. So I use it from say 5% of the patients. Somebody says 10%, somebody says up to 20%. There will be one outlier who will say, I use it for 100% of my patients. This is the new molecule, extremely great molecule. I am using this particular product for 100% of my patients. This is an outlier. This could be true, but still an outlier. You cannot apply the data of that one doctor to the universe of doctors because there could be very few outliers like that, right? So you need to remove those outliers from your analysis. Then you need to check trends. You need to check relationship between two parameters once again. Apply more qualitative and quantitative measures, and then finally create an output of this entire extrapolation methodology. Again, I'm informing you that no other than a data science can do this particular project of extrapolation. I'll give you example of this now. I'm sure some of you or many of you would have heard of IMS or IQVIA. This is one of the companies in the country, and globally they provide databases to various pharmaceutical companies. They actually talk about the size of the pharmaceutical market. They talk about size of a pharma company. They talk about the size or revenue of a molecule, how big a molecule is in the country. How do they get that information? PharmaRack also provides similar information about market of a city, of market of a molecule, market of a company. How do you get that information? When you say market means total. Now for getting a data market, you need either the data of all manufacturers in the country and you need to sum it up. Or you need to go to all pharmaceutical marketeers get the data of all their brands and then sum it up. Or you need to do that with the distributors or retailers or consumers. All. I'm talking about all because I want to know total pharma market. That means I need to go to all of them and collect that data. Now, what is so difficult in that? Now I'll give you the numbers. There are 10,000 manufacturers in the country right now. There are more than 20,000 pharmaceutical marketeers in the country. There are 60,000 plus distributors in the country. There are 800,000 retailers in the country. There are 1.2 billion population in the country. How many of them can you go to and collect data from? You will take maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, and you will end up spending not crores of rupees, but billions of dollars in collecting this information. So what's the simple way to do it? Again, as I mentioned to you earlier, create, or convert all this entire heterogeneous universe of, say, take example of stockists or distributors. Convert all the entire heterogeneous universe of distributors into homogeneous set of distributors. How will you do that? Use filters of city or state, size of business, number and types of companies that they manage as clients. Are they hospital distributors, OTC distributors, pharma distributors, generic distributors? Create universe and then break that universe to homogeneous sets or homogeneous segments, and then pick up a very small sample from each one of them. Assume all the distributors in the country, which are all hospital distributors in Maharashtra, in metro cities of Maharashtra, which are only Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur, and Nasik. The big metro cities. That's the universe that I talk about. Then suddenly that universe becomes, say, 500 distributors. Then I pick up only 50 distributors from there. I don't need all 500. I pick up 50, 60 distributors and I extrapolate that data. That means I expand that data of 50 distributors to 500 distributors. And then I get the total market of that segment. So once I get market of that segment, I slowly start creating markets of other segments, and I then sum up those markets to come up with the market value. That's the kind of exercise that we do. Not very easy for me to explain in 1 hour's time, not very easy for you to understand everything in 1 hour's time. But this is done only by data scientists. So what they do is they draw samples, they empanel distributors, they collect their purchase and sales data every month, extrapolate from sample to universe, remove outliers, check data for aberrations, trends, clean data, finally created and provided to the clients. These are various steps that are done by the data scientist. Sagar, how much time do we have now?
Sir, we can continue, I think, till we have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so I will take, this is the last example of forecasting now. This is again another area. So there are, remember, segmentation, the extrapolation of data and creating databases, and forecasting. These are the very, very important areas for the pharma industry, and these are very, very important areas for data scientists. So when we talk about forecast, what does that mean? Forecasting means predicting future of a brand that you are planning to launch in the market. So if you are a product manager or if you are a marketing manager and you are given a task of finding out what will be the revenue that you will get at the end of 5th year of launch of a product, how will you get that? It's not very easy. So you need to do a lot of analysis of databases which are available with you. Okay. So there are various analyses which are already available, like time series analysis. You draw a straight line, you draw an exponential line or best fit curves, etc., etc. There are statistical techniques which are available. Data scientist understands which technique suits well for which situation. Okay. Statistician can tell you each of these techniques really very well. A statistician can tell you the pros and cons of every technique, but the data scientist knows which technique to use when, in which situation. Okay. There are some judgmental techniques. One of the most important techniques that are used by strategic consultants like McKinsey, BCG, IMS, PharmaRank is event-based probabilistic forecasting. And now I am not going to explain this in detail, but I'm just going to show this slide. This is the last slide of my presentation, right? And I wanted to end my presentation with one of the most complicated slides rather than a very easy slide. This is a work done by data scientist. Okay, the data scientist has created a workflow to arrive at a forecast that is total XYZ value sale at the end of the year and end of 5-year period. This is what a data scientist has created from level 0. Level 0 is there is nothing that is available with him. So data scientist starts off with collection of data first. So Indian population. Now, even before he starts collecting the data scientist will understand what data to be collected, which has got relevance in terms of arriving at these value sales. So then he says that, okay, Indian population data is very important because we need to understand how many patients can be affected by this disease and how many patients will be using my product. So I need Indian population data. I need patient incidence data. Then I need number of patients diagnosed, number of patients treated, etc., etc. This is an example of a product in an oncology space. Okay, primarily in the small cell lung cancer. So this is SCLC and NSCLC. So you have to basically then find out using primary market research data, some secondary sales, secondary data. You have to find out the different segments of patients who will be using this particular product, who will not be using the product, the patient who can afford this, patient who cannot afford it at various prices, then what is the preference of a doctor for molecule 1 versus molecule 2, etc., etc., etc. Right? And then based upon certain parameters like average daily dose, compliance, what is the price that is available, all those factors come into picture, like product event, future product launches, XYZ additional approvals, patent expiry of existing competition. All these variables and factors which are put into this forecasting model, and then finally you arrive at this particular number. You know how much time it takes to arrive at one forecast? It normally takes 2 months to do forecasting for one molecule, one brand. It can take 2 months for 2 people full-time working on this particular project. And forecasting for like 5-6 brands put together or 2-3 molecules put together for a company can cost them anywhere between 30 lakhs rupees to 75 lakhs rupees. Okay? Only forecasting exercise for 3 to 4 brands can cost them 30 lakhs to 75 lakhs rupees. These are expensive projects that are done by many multinational companies and many Indian companies or other countries. And that is the power of data science that I wanted to share with you. That's it from my side right now. I can go on because this topic is very close to my heart. I have taken workshops on this topic, but I have got 1 hour. This is max that I could cover in 1 hour's time. I will stop here and I will wait for questions to come from your side.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Bombay College of Pharmacy, we are indeed privileged to hear such an insightful session into what actually goes in data analytics. I'll just raise few questions on behalf of the audience. So, should I?
Sure, please.
So, first question is, what value pharmacist knowledge can add in data analysis?
What a great.
I mean, from pharm.
Correct. What a great question. I talked about 2 very, very important points. One is the relevance of the data. Trust me, many other people can work on it and can try to understand that. But there is no better person than a pharmacist who can understand relevance of the data. If I give this entire exercise to an engineer, I can tell you that they can do it. But I have to do. Because I'm a pharmacist. I have to do a lot of hand-holding for them. They don't understand the nuances of the molecule, the elements, the diseases, the interaction between 2 molecules, the prevalence of the data, the incidences of data. There is a lot of hand-holding that is required to be done for people who come from different backgrounds, primarily engineering background. But pharmacists are, I would say, born with that knowledge now in the industry. Once they come to the industry, obviously they're born with that knowledge. So the things become very, very easy for them. They would definitely have an upper hand over engineers or BScs or BComs in terms of making their career in the data analysis space in the healthcare sector. You look at any of the examples that I talked about, even look at the segmentation. It's all about doctors, diseases, molecules. It's all about that. If there can't be a better person than perhaps a pharmacist or a medical doctor who can understand this. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And there is a flip side to this question. What can data analytics knowledge do to a pharmacy fresh graduate? Like how beneficial it is and how do you apply it? Where do you see it in terms of employment?
So I'll answer this question 2 ways. One is how does it enhance your knowledge? Trust me, doing only BPharm or even MBA will not teach you this entire forecasting technique that I have put over here. We have recruited so many MBAs and we have to do a lot of hand-holding to these MBAs also because they don't understand data analytics. If we have data analytics guys, I don't need to do the data analytics guy, the pharmacist, then it's like a cakewalk in the pharma industry. In terms of job opportunities, there are 4 different types of industries which are open to you. Number one is obviously pharmaceutical. Okay, for all their strategy and market in research projects and departments, they would always prefer a B Farm with a data analytics background. The second one is all about the logistics department. Okay, you may think that logistics is all about supplying products from manufacturing unit to the end consumer. You are wrong. It involves a lot of demand planning, demand estimation. It involves a lot of machine learning. I'm sure you know these are the terms that you have used. Machine learning is very, very crucial in logistics right now, and that's where the data scientist comes into picture. Your knowledge is open over there. Your knowledge is very much required in the pharma industry in these two segments. Okay. Second one is obviously the consulting organizations. There are multiple consulting organizations which look at people with data scientist background. Right now, if I have to give my example to you, we are recruiting 3 data scientists in our Pune office. We have got only one till date after searching for 3 months. We are not getting a person with data science background. We are getting people with MBA background, or we are getting people with BPharm background, but we are not getting people with good data science background who understand pharma sector. I am getting some people who have done in automobiles, people who have done some work in some, but they don't understand pharma at all. And I can't take a risk of recruiting them in the healthcare sector when they don't understand any pharma. So for last 3 months, we are searching for a person who with BPharm plus data analysis background, or even if he's not BPharm, but some exposure to pharma industry and data analytics background, and we are not getting it. So there is a scarcity of people over there. So that's the second industry, which is consulting. And the third big one is the data science, data analytics industry itself. So these are 3 very, very big industries which are looking for people like that.
Thank you, sir. And for the next question is raised by Dr. Sagar. So can I ask Dr. Sagar to unmute and raise your question?
Sir, first of all, let me congratulate you. It was a really excellent presentation. I mean, I was listening to all the time, and I can also wait till you keep going on. Okay. So I have one question for myself, and I think I'll go first with Ashish sir's question which he has sent me. So this is particularly for that slide in which you showed a molecule in which you have a lot of data coming in from all the different doctors. So in that, the question is, as we go much deeper into the data analysis, we get more information. So for example, as a data scientist, should I go much deeper in the data which I have, or should I enhance and try to gather much more data in the different areas to sharpen the insights? So what is your take in that?
Correct. Very good question. It's a simple question of going horizontal or going vertical. Is it depth or breadth? And there is no direct answer. Let me also tell you, it all depends upon the genesis of the exercise or the project that you are talking about. Every situation demands a different kind of an analysis. So for example, I am talking about identifying which is the important doctor specialty for me. I know there are 6 or 7 parameters that I need to go to. I can focus on all those 6 or 7 parameters. Whereas if I have to do some forecasting of a molecule, trust me, there is no limit to the depth of the information that you can go to. There is absolutely no limit. What I have presented, can you see this slide on the screen right now, which I have presented, the last slide of my presentation?
Yes.
This is still not the depth. I can tell you, there are 6 or 7 such flowcharts that I have for one project, 6 or 7 flowcharts. And we just go down. So every cell over here, for example, on third line, what is the failure patients from competitors and patients on molecule line 1? Just to identify that I have got one full flowchart. Right, even from moving from number of patients on NSCLC to metastatic and metastatic on radio and all, this is a simple flowchart, but for that I have got another big flowchart over there. So there is no dearth of the flow that you should go at, the depth that you should go to. But again, as a data scientist, you have to be aware of the time and the money. I think that is the most important thing. If I am going to get 75 lakhs rupees paid, I will go depth, I will go breadth, I will do everything. If I am given only 15 days for this particular project and I have got 10 lakhs rupees for the same project, I have no option than to restrict myself to maybe 6 or 7 parameters and do an analysis commensurate to the time and money that has been spent on that. Data scientist always remembers one thing: what is the money that has been spent on the effort taken by the data scientist. That's it. And every work is done by him based upon that.
Yes. Thank you, sir. One more question I have personally is, like, as we start collecting this data, like for example, from any of the sources, we start collecting the data, and when we are analyzing this data, like, are there any methods to identify any false responses, like, or false data?
Another question. So this is primary. This normally happens in a primary market research.
Yes. Yes.
So we actually. So every intelligent market researcher always puts 1 or 2 googlies. You understand Google in cricket, right? So what we normally do is, wherever we think that a question is likely to be very critical and the response from the respondent is very critical for those 3 or 4 questions, there are always some googlies put later on in the questionnaire. So what happens as a part of that googly is that if the respondent has answered one or given one specific answer, for example, how many patients of say metastatic lymphoma that you have treated in last say 1 month, and he says say 25 patients, there will be another question, maybe after 10, 15 or 20 questions, there will be another question which will also say that what is the total number of patients of lymphoma that he has, and he says in total I have treated say 60 patients. You will easily come to know that he has lied either on second question or first question, because in first question he said 50. You cannot have specific metastatic lymphoma treated with this particular molecule, which is like almost 90%, right? So these are some goals that you actually define. Second one is based upon the experience. Okay, there are always characteristic traits which are defined for population. Now I can tell you, there are, don't get me wrong, and I am not biased by religion or geography, but there are certain areas like say Delhi, where you go to a doctor and you ask him, you know, how many patients do you treat every day? If the doctor is treating 100, he will say 150. Okay, they generally extrapolate their responses to show off. Okay, and it's not only Delhi, but there are some traits in some regions. Whereas you go to some other regions, there are doctors who tend to, play a different ball game altogether. They will give you very mediocre responses, and there are some doctors who will give you. There are some areas where doctors will always give you realistic responses. So based upon such back-end project that have already been done, there are normalization factors that are created by market research agencies, and those are also applied on the final and results.
Okay, thank you, sir. I request if any one of the students have any questions, they can unmute themselves and ask the questions. No.
I don't think there are much questions, Sagar.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let me ask one question to the student. They can at least unmute and answer my question. Have they?
Mahesh, before you go ahead, can you just keep your last slide, because students can get your number, because some people are shy in asking questions in the group, so they can talk to you or send a WhatsApp to you afterwards.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope everybody can see my mobile number and my email ID. Please to write to me and connect with me anytime they want. My only question to you, and I want people to unmute and answer that question. Have you understood my lecture today? And if yes, or if no, please tell me, have you not understood, or what have you understood? Maybe just one line question or answer that you can give to me. I will request everybody to unmute and answer that question, yes or no. And have you understood the importance of data analytics in the business? I expect at least 5 responses.
I think
Yes,
Sag-
sir, we've understood.
Yes, sir.
It was a great session, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, then Ashish, if there are no more questions, then let me know how to proceed now.
Yeah, I leave it to Sagar now.
Yeah, I think. Dr. Galvina is there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So may I now propose a vote of thanks? So today, as we conclude with the session on data analytics, we would thank our speaker for today, Mahesh Kalsekar sir, for coming back and giving back to BCP such an engaging and interesting session, which would not have been possible without the involvement of Ashish sir. So I thank you both on behalf of Bombay College of Pharmacy. We look forward to many such interactions in the future and associations with the student. Thank you for sparing your valuable time on the auspicious occasion of Ganpati festival. So with this, I greet everyone a happy Ganesh Chaturthi and wish everyone a happy weekend. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ashish sir, and thank you, Mahesh sir, for giving me your time.
Thank you so much, Galvina. Today is the day of knowledge. Today is the day of Ganpati. So first of all, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to me to actually share my knowledge with you. And as it says that, sharing knowledge is always increasing your own knowledge. So thanks a lot for.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you,
Thank
Ashish
you.
sir. So
See
with
you.
Thank
this,
you.
we'll be dropping us call for the session today. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.